Well, thank you all for joining us. Really appreciate your being here. I know that it's been a really busy 2 days for a lot of you, but I promise you it's going to be a treat here again. So welcome all. And today we are joined by Kathleen Mitford. Sorry. And she's the EVP and Chief Strategy Officer at PTC. And PTC, for those of you who don't know, is a 1 billion plus company with Kathleen, about like 6,000 plus employees. It's a global organization. So for Kathleen to have the seat at the table there is really, really amazing. So congratulations.
Thank you, Parna.
And so you guys, before we get started, I just want to remind you, please ask questions, share your links to the LinkedIn profile so we can all stay connected, and do tell us where you're from. Kathleen and I are from Boston. It's sunny Boston today. And our topic today is diversity and innovation. So Kathleen, let's get going. So diversity is obviously a really hot topic today. And diversity also means different things to different people. Like for me, when I hear diversity, my first thought always is culture, multicultural, different regions, and so on. But given the current climate, the emphasis seems to be around diversity of race, a lot of, based on what's happening in the country today and even in the world. How do you define diversity?
Well, that's a great question, Parna. And first of all, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm really excited to have a great conversation with the group here. So first of all, for me, diversity definitely means the traditional definition of diversity. Whether it's what your gender is, whether it's your race, your skin color, your culture, your ethnic background, your disabilities. So definitely think about the traditional definition. But for me, diversity is also about diversity of a team, diversity of thinking. So having a team with different backgrounds. So I like to have a team of people that have worked, not at exactly the same type of company or the same competitors. So thinking about people with different experiences and different work experiences. I like it to think of diversity as diversity in age. I like to make sure that in a team we have not only new talent right out of school, but also more experienced talent as well. And then I also think that diversity differs a lot by region. I've learned a lot about diversity and how diversity is different by country from my visits with not only our North America and Europe employees, but Israel and India. Diversity in India is very different than diversity in Israel, which is different from diversity in the U.S. So I think there's a lot of different definitions for diversity, but when I think about it, I try to be broad in having a broad definition of it.
Now that makes a lot of sense. Especially, I think, with both of us being in the tech industry, we also realize the value of having a diverse team, whether it's, different ages, different culture, different belief. And that's essentially what makes for a really good product or a service, right? How do you feel? Because I know the last time we talked, you mentioned you're responsible for, a whole host of engineers and, helping them drive diversity within the organization as well. So how do you see the value of diversity to an economy or society?
Great question. Well, if you think about our economy and you think about our society, we are all diverse. We don't live in an environment where everybody looks exactly the same, everybody has the same upbringing. So I think the impact of diversity is really helping us as a society be a better society, being able to relate with each other being able to relate better with each other. When I think about the interactions that I have with different team members, I have a much better interaction if I understand their background. So I think from a society impact, us taking a step back and being open to understanding what the different experience is, how it's different to be a Black employee versus a Hispanic employee versus a woman versus somebody with a different religious background, helps us to be more understanding of that person, which helps us to have better relationships with them. I think when it comes to the economy, and you think about, most of us are probably in tech, we make products that are used by some type of consumer. In order to have the right product, you need to understand the needs of that background. And again, it's going to be different based upon the different types of diversity that we've talked about.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think when we talk about workplace diversity, right, it is a must today. It's no longer a good to have. And we've seen so many different surveys and reports that talk about the impact of diverse team on innovation. And I think one of the recent numbers that I was looking at was they talked about public companies that have a diverse management team. They see a 95% high return on equity just to start with. That's just at the top. And I know that you're driving diversity at PTC, which is also a big company and a public company as well. Share with us, how are you getting more people to embrace diversity? Are you holding people accountable? Is it starting at the top, or is it part of your integrated teams that you're creating?
Absolutely. So at PTC, we put a focus on diversity probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I can't remember exactly because I've always been focused on this. But as a company, we put a program in place around diversity and set goals. So we have a goal at PTC to be 40% women by 2024. And we've been making progress each year towards getting towards that goal. So we set a goal. We made sure everyone in the company is aware of that goal. That's one of our corporate goals that we track each year, and we measure it. In fact, at our executive staff, as a leadership team, we meet every Friday, and this past Friday, we just went through the progress that we've been making on diversity at the company level, but then also at each executive level as well. So no executive wants to show up in a meeting with the CEO and have the lowest diversity scores. And we break that out based upon what we can measure. We can easily measure women, female versus male. When you get into Europe, there's a couple more privacy laws that make it a little bit more difficult. We measure underrepresented minorities, but that we measure just for the U.S. because again, the definition of underrepresented minorities is different globally. So we set goals, we measure it, we report out on it. That's at the highest level. But then we also work with each one of our teams on educating them on diversity, holding our own teams accountable on diversity, holding diversity workshops within the organization so everybody understands the importance of it and that it's just part of the culture of PTC. And it's the right thing to do. Not only does it drive better outcomes for a company, like you mentioned, but it's just the right thing to do.
No, you're absolutely right. But how do you get started? That there's always challenges, and a lot of people may say, oh yeah, we are already diverse, we got X% of women, or we got people of color, what have you. But it's really sometimes hard and challenging to really get a program that's integrated and seeped into the culture. How do you get started?
Great question. Well, first of all, measure. So understand where you are today. So, measure and look at it, like I talked about by organization. But a lot of different things that we've done is understanding. So when we started the diversity program at PTC, at that time I was in charge of our engineering organization. And when I would visit each office, I would meet with the different groups, whether it was women, whether it was our OLA, which is our Hispanic ERG, whether it's meeting with your Black employees, meeting with the different groups to understand how they feel about the company and diversity. What are some of the challenges that they face? So, measure, understand by meeting with the employees, And even if you're not in a leadership position, just being involved with different diverse employees and hearing what's on their mind. One of the things that also was very helpful for us is being in Massachusetts as part of the Mass High Tech Council. We helped the Mass High Tech Council start a program around women in leadership so that we can talk to other companies about what they've been doing as well. So understanding what other companies, either in a similar region or a similar type of technology are doing things like starting employee resource groups. Those have been great for PTC, especially right now. Our Black Employee Resource Group is really helping us to understand the impact of what's going on today around some of the racial challenges. So a lot of different ways to get started. Again, measure, talk to people, understand, set goals, create employee resource groups, talk to other organizations. This WITI organization is a great organization. I thought I knew a lot about women in technology, and being a woman in technology myself, that's come up through the ranks. But having conversations as part of groups with other companies as well opened my eyes to other things that we could be doing at PTC. So doing those things, and then also if you're in a leadership position, make sure that you're also exposing it to your team. I have, with my organization, I have annual workshop sessions in addition to things that are being done, with the rest of the company on what are some of the diversity challenges in my org and setting goals for what we need to do to increase diversity, specifically in my organization outside of the company's goals as well.
Right. No, those are all great examples, and congrats for doing so much with the organization. It takes a lot of bricks to make things happen. So it's all good. I know we talked quite a bit about how to drive innovation, diversity, and innovation within organizations. What about people who are not in companies, but what can a startup, for example, or even as individuals, what can we do to get other people to understand more about diversity, think inclusivity? Are there tips that you may have for folks who may not be maybe in different industries or not work, or maybe working with themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's some of the same things. When there used to be meetups, going to meetups was a great opportunity for me to learn a lot about what are some of the challenges and how I can embrace diversity in some of the different organizations. So for example, going to our OLA, our Hispanic groups meetups, helped me to understand a lot about what's happening there. So go to meetups, look for different types of, there's so much documentation that is out there as well, reports on what are the statistics of, and it's different again, based upon the different type of diversity, whether it's women in leadership, whether it's Black employees, whether it's Hispanic. There's tons of different reports about what are the statistics today, what are the averages in the industry, with tips on things that you can actually do. I know specifically for women that McKinsey publishes a report, their Women in Leadership report each year, that gives you actionable advice as to how to promote women in organizations. So those are all good things to do, but one of the things I found helpful is talking to people with a like mind as me that have done it in other companies at different levels. Even before I was in a leadership position, I would talk to women that I met at different networking events that were looking to promote not only their own career, but also within their team or their organization.
Yeah, and that's such a good point that you made. Talking to different people, have your peer groups. So I have this example of the last few weeks have been challenging even to help guide some of my clients, for example. And I spoke with this person, Kathleen. I should probably introduce you to her at some point. This is what she does. She helps, people understand diversity. How do you be a more diverse organization? And she was kind of the person that I could go to say, hey, how do I help other organizations or help my clients? So it's, yeah, you're right. Having this network and having, peer groups and being able to talk to it's just so invaluable for sure. Getting back to innovation. We also see that the direct correlation between innovation and diversity. I know you talked a little bit about PTC and how innovative the company is. Are there metrics that you can share that talks about how innovation actually impacted the company's bottom line?
Yeah, sure. I'll use PTC as an example. As I mentioned, we really started focusing on diversity 3 to 4 years ago. And in the last 3 to 4 years, the innovation that has come out of PTC is absolutely incredible. Now, I can say that I work for PTC, but my pride in what our engineering and product teams have delivered over the last couple of years just blows me away. With innovations in Internet of Things, in augmented reality, in spatial computing, in generative design, the list goes on. And when I take a step back and look at our teams, we have more women in leadership positions, we have more Black employees, we have more Hispanic employees, we have younger employees, we have employees with tattoos, we have employees with mohawks. We've really embraced a culture of diversity. And as a company, for years, we were growing in upper single digits, but the last couple of years, we've been growing double digits. So, I do see that there's a direct tie between the innovation that we're driving and the diversity of our employees, which is having an impact on our growth. So I truly do believe that. I also think ways you can measure that are one of the ways we measure how innovative and how thought leadership we are in different Magic Quadrants. And over the last couple of years, every one of our product lines, which is absolutely unbelievable, has been in the upper right quadrant, which is where you want to be, that shows that you're a thought leader in the space. And I personally think that the innovation does have a direct tie to the diversity of the team.
Yeah, no, those are great examples. Let's talk about the tech ecosystem for a change. We all, especially you and PTC, and there's a whole host of organizations in Boston and obviously, in the US, that's helping students also not only learn about STEM or go to, they're not just STEM programs, but we are also looking at teaching the students about diversity through STEM programs, for example. How do you feel about making sure that our students and the future innovators right at the early stage get to know about diversity and how that is such a critical piece of their professional life and their lives of, whatever product development or product innovation they do? So what message and what tips do we have for the youths of today?
Yeah, that's another great question. And I mentioned I have 2 young children. And I'll never forget when my daughter, she's now 8, she came home from nursery school one day. I think she was 4 at the time, and she was very upset because one of her friends told her that she couldn't marry boy A because his skin was black. And my daughter she doesn't see skin color. She sees friends that she loves to play with. And I just share that story because I think that every one of us has a responsibility, both with our own children and with the society that we live in, to encourage them to embrace different cultures, different backgrounds, different diversity. So I do believe that's important in focusing on STEM, but also focusing on teaching that in the schools as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And speaking about kids, when my daughter was very young, she came back from school one day and she goes, "Mom, they were asking me why do I have brown skin?" So I was trying to explain to a kindergartner how, what does all of this mean? but that kind of triggered this whole program that we started to create in schools so that they learn about different cultures, they learn about, diversity. And as a parent, we used to take our kids to a different country every year so they would learn to appreciate different cultures, food, trends, and so on. So, like you said, I think as parents, it's also up to us to educate, our kids and our community diversity. So yeah, that's a really good point. Let's see, we have some questions here. Sorry. So, can you give us examples from PTC on why or how you think an innovative new business or new technology wouldn't or couldn't have come to fruition without a diverse team or under a minority leadership? Thanks, Jess. Good question.
Yeah, no, really, really good question. What I can do is I can talk about historically at PTC and where we are today. So I've been at PTC now for 14 and a half years. And when I started at PTC, I was one of very few women in the product organization. At that level, I started as a vice president, and I remember going into a meeting with 25 men and being the only woman in there. And for years at PTC, we competed in CAD and PLM in two markets with our peers, and weren't really seeing any accelerated growth. We were seeing good growth, but nothing at an accelerated level. Once we started thinking differently and thinking about hiring people that are different than us, we had a program called Brains and Passion. We used to hire all, and I love white men, but we used to hire all white men that were in their 30s, 40s, that, all that had the same background, came from, a different set of competitors. And then we started this program about 10 years ago, where it was Brains and Passion, and hire people that are smart, and hire people that are passionate about doing the right thing. Passionate about PTC, passionate about our customers, passionate about technology. And those type of people are not all, white men, which again, still we have a lot of white men, they're very important. And then we got into new businesses. We started seeing growth. We started acquiring a lot new customers. So that's, the example that I can use from PTC. Thinking differently about our talent, thinking differently about the type of people that we brought in, allowed us to have different mindsets, different types of opinions, different ways to approach problems that I believe has had a direct impact on the success that we're seeing today.
Yeah, no, those are really good examples. And speaking of male allies, how do you feel about having male sponsors, mentors, or male allies? Because at the end of the day, no organization is women only. Every team has men and women. So how do we work or find mentors and sponsors that would allow us to move up the ladder as well as help drive your ideas to fruition?
Yeah, no, I think male allies are extremely important. And I had a male ally that helped me get to where I am today. So I do think that you need a combination of male allies and women mentors as well, because they bring a different mindset and different, give you different types of feedback. How do you find an ally? It's a great question. It needs to be a relationship that's beneficial for both people. So when you're looking to find a male ally, I typically look for where can I contribute something that's going to be important to this person that I want to have as an ally. What value can I bring to them? In addition, when you're looking for an ally, you want somebody that actually sees you in action. So somebody that can give you feedback after you leave a meeting. So having an ally that you don't see very often or doesn't know that much about you, for me, hasn't been very helpful. It's been helpful to have an ally that interacts a lot with me, that I feel comfortable enough that will give me direct and honest feedback.
Yeah, that's really, really important for sure. Erin had a question. I think you've answered some of it. She asks, since PTC started to focus on diversity a few years ago, what tangible results have you noticed? You shared quite a bit. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I would say the tangible results would be in our growth rates. The tangible results would be in our employee engagement scores. And we do look at employee engagement by diversity. So our employee engagement scores have gone up significantly. So employee engagement scores, our growth, innovation, we look at attrition as well, so tangible results in being able to maintain employees of different diverse backgrounds. So those are all the types of things that we look at.
Colleen, am I missing any questions that came in? Guys, thank you so much for the interaction. Patty, you're sharing some really good comments. I don't know, Kathleen, if you're seeing them and if there's anything that you may want to add to the comments.
Well, I see that one comment there, women with men mentors or more. I definitely agree that. I've had some male mentors that have really, pushed me to up the amount of money that I ask for, and also to be a little bit more bold in some of my asks. So yeah, that's all. That's great.
Yeah. So here's another question. What is PTC doing to build female tech talent in the community so that they can fill their talent pipeline?
That is a great question because it has been a topic that we've been discussing almost every week at executive staff. We're definitely making progress in Black talent, but we have a lot, we have a ways to go like everybody else does. We have been working with the local colleges on making sure that we're working with colleges where we can attract, Black and female employees. We've been looking for STEM programs focused on Black employees, but we still have work to do. So if anybody has any suggestions for us, I would love to get some suggestions for us as we continue to focus on that.
That's a great question and a great response, Kathleen. Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. This is about, this is moving up too fast. Would love to hear how you use your ERGs to help move diverse talent internally as well as build employee referrals. It's a great question, Beth. Thank you.
Well, I can tell you one thing. I'm the executive sponsor of the OLA ERG, and it has given me visibility to talent that I wouldn't have typically had exposure to because they're not in a function that was similar to mine. So I think that using the ERGs, we use it personally for me. I've gotten exposure to a lot of talent. Also in some of these ERGs, when we have different meetups, we use that also as an opportunity to do career training and career advancement. And not only myself as executive sponsor, but in the ERGs, we have executives from other functions as well, which then gives those executives exposure to the employees in the ERG. And it's not just exposure, but it's also having availability for them as mentors. So those are a couple of things we've done with the ERG.
No, that's awesome. Well, this has been an amazing session. Thank you all for your questions, for being here. And I just realized that I was so excited in the beginning to introduce Kathleen that I forgot to introduce myself. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Parna, and I'm the VP of Brand Marketing for WITI and the founder of Branded Buzz Marketing. So thank you all for joining us today. Please stay in touch, enjoy the rest of the summit, and hopefully we'll see you in the next session. Thank you, Kathleen. It was an amazing session. Thanks for all your insights.
Thank you, Parna. Thank you for having me, and thank you, everybody, for joining.
Bye-bye.